Hi, welcome back to my channel. This is Patricia Stuart of Patricia Stuart Originals. I've been working on gathering materials to make something that represents sort of like what I call the old world. And I was going through some papers and I found my great grandparents. I found one of their bank books from a long time ago, and I made a photocopy of it. And this is from the 1930s. Everything was done by hand. And I thought this would be nice to include in a collage painting of the old world. And then my grandmother, their daughter, I found an envelope. She had a letter that she had written, that a friend of hers from the old world had written to her. And it has the stamps of Barbados there, and here was a bit of the letter. And back then I think they used quill pens or something, and I made a copy of it, and the paper stood the test of time, and the ink as well. And also I found some notes that were written. I think my grandmother's husband, my grandfather, wrote this note, and it was about money. So it gives you 66 pounds, 13 shillings, 6 pence, and that's the way they described their money back then in the old world. So I wanted to put some of these, make a collage artwork with some gel prints mixed in. And also I had found, I believe it was my grandmother's visa from 1953, and it has the stamp, and I would like to use that as well, and her actual cover of her passport. And so these types of things with the stamp on it, these emblems, to also include those in the artwork. Another one, part of her visa, 1952. And back then the visas, they had 32 pages to them. On some of the pages, they even describe if you had a birthmark or a particular distinguishing mark on your face. There was a page on the passports back then that would say, oh, a scar over the left eye, or a scar on the chin. The passports were very descriptive, and not just the photo, but it had other pertinent information about the person. And so I decided I wanted to, I did a light gel print pull with translucent paint, because I wanted to put a little color to these. And then I had in my possession an old map. As you can see, it's brown around the edges. And I'm going to also include pieces of this as well, with the colors, bringing the colors in. So on the gel plate, what I did earlier, I took some brown paper, like from brown paper bag, but this was actually some brown acid-free art paper that I had, and I pull some earth tone, earthy colors that I thought I can cut out some shapes as well to include. And then I had pulled some black. And I'm going to show you how I did these three. But I wanted some black markings, and so I just did lines of black paint on the gel plate, put the paper down, pressed it. And when I did the first pull, this is what came. And then what was left on the plate, I put another piece of paper to pick up the leftover paint. And then after I picked up that leftover paint, to my surprise, it had left the ghost print of all these circles. And then I took translucent green to pick up the circles of this pattern, which was just wonderful. And so I'm going to show you how I did these three. It almost looks like mark making, but it was done on the gel print plate. So you might have some old papers, or letters that have stamps and different insignias on them. You should keep those. Anything that you have old, whether it's, you know, old bills or letters that came from different countries, different places where you have the stamps, those things you can make photocopies of. And they make for some nice items and things that you can incorporate into your gel painting. So see here, I just put some lines of paint. This is an 8x10 plate using computer paper and golden fluid acrylics. And so all I did was put the paper on and gently pressed out the lines. I started by gently pressing them out. And lifting the paper. And here you have some nice line work. And you see that we have more on the plate. So I took a clean sheet. Well, actually, before I did that, I turned it upside down. So the part that was at the bottom, I now have at the top. And then I pulled it a little lower on the plate so that I can try to get the in-between spaces or a separate area as opposed to going on top of the paint again. And that's, then I got this effect. What's great about this effect is when it dries, you can take Posca pens, white markers, and you can doodle on top of these lines or add different things, or you can keep it as is and cut slices of it and incorporate that into some work. Or you can do what I did in previous videos where you cut them into squares and see a different perspective that you can get. So after I pulled that, then I got this wonderful design that I now can pull a third print from this. And this is just from putting 5 or 6 thin lines of paint on the gel plate. Okay? And that's how then you get these markings. These also can be cut up in squares and mixed together and alternated with the other one. And so here is the ghost print. And so with this, which is a really, really interesting design that it leaves behind. And this is going to be the 4th pull. And so I use a translucent, I had used green for the one that I had done. Let's try, I'm going to try some ultramarine violet and see what the effect will be. And this pretty much only works with a translucent. And how we know it's translucent, you see these ticks. And if you can see the tick marks through the paint color, it's telling you it's translucent. Whereas the teal isn't, it's more opaque, right? So this works well with some translucent paint. So you can see under this purple this ghost print. Sometimes we just never know what markings we can get from the gel print. It's good to experiment, and I'm always experimenting, trying things. Sometimes I stumble upon something that I didn't plan for, and that's what happened earlier when I was doing this. I just stumbled in the process of cleaning the plate, stumbled upon a nice print, and I won't forget that process because I'll be using it more and more. And I kind of like for the paper to sit on the plate a little bit. It cleans the plate nicely. And here we have it. How nice is that? And this also can be cut in pieces and squares, and you get the different effect. It looks good in both colors. Now, if I wanted to, I could also add, you know, if I didn't want to cut this up in pieces, I could also add to this by stenciling over it, or when it dries, just pulling a translucent print on top. So the sky's the limit. But I just wanted to show you that even without having a stencil, you can create designs. So, okay, I'm going to try Payne's Gray, and I'm going to, instead of doing lines, I'm going to do just half squares. And I'm going to put the paper on top. This I haven't done before. And I just want to see if we do something different than straight lines, what might we come up with? And I'm just lightly, where you feel the paint, pressing in a little. And this is the mark making that makes. There's still more on the plate, so I'm going to pick up another print, pressing in more. And I'm not sure what imprint this will leave. It might not. Oh, that's interesting. And here's the second pull. And here we have this interesting design that is left behind, which is pretty cool. Now some parts of it are still wet, so let's see, I'm going to turn this upside down and see if I can dry it out a little bit. And it left some nice markings behind. And here is what we have. So I'm going to go in with Indian yellow hue. It's a translucent, and see how that pulls up. So these are, you can make some interesting markings. Which are different to stenciling and mark making with markers and pens. It's just unique. And no matter how many times you do the same pattern, it's not going to look exactly the same, and it's so organic. And that's what I like, creating markings and prints and monoprints that are very organic. And all of these I'm going to incorporate pieces into artwork that I'm working on. And there you have this, which is a nice, unique, organic print. And so that's something that you can try. We've got this one and this one and the one that I did earlier. And those are pretty cool. It's almost like a one-time thing that wouldn't happen again in exactly that way if you did it again, if you repeated the process. And that's what's great about them. And as I said, these, if I was to, let's see, some of them are still drying. Okay. These are dry. And these two are still drying. Anyway, if I was to cut these up in pieces, since I want to use them as squares, and I can cut them as small as I want, as large as I want. And these squares can be incorporated into anything. You can incorporate them in a journal that you're working on. Where now you have all of these pieces that can be matched together differently. Different shapes. And positioned differently. If you wanted one to go across, one to go down, it's however you would choose to put your painting together. And so you can do interesting things with these squares, cutouts. There's so many different ways to arrange them, use them in a variety of different things. And we also had these as well that can be cut into squares, or they can be cut into strips. So you don't necessarily have to have stencils to create designs. You can drizzle the paint onto the gel plate and put your paper on, pressing it, and it's the pressing that creates the unique organic design. So here are strips that can be used sort of like a weaving process. Over and under, creating a unique design. And you can make different color gel pulls with your organic prints. Weaving them in. And you can create a whole new look. Something like this, woven together. Whether you did it with all the same colors or you use different colors mixed in, makes for an interesting piece of work and art. So don't be afraid to experiment, and definitely you should try making the straight line of paint on the gel plate, putting your paper, pressing in, and you can pull up to 4 pulls, even the ghost print, that gives you such nice designs and effects. And don't forget, hold on to your old papers and make photocopies of certain ones that have some interesting markings and different stamps, if they're from different countries, or letters, or different things like that, so that you can create an old world piece. I will be working on my old world piece. So thank you so much for stopping by. And my recent subscribers, I want to thank you. Thank you very much for subscribing, hanging out with me, checking out what I do. My goal is to inspire and to encourage creativity, encourage you to think outside the box, and to just create and enjoy what you're doing with the gel plate. Thanks for stopping by.